So listen, it's 2026 and we're in a little bit of trouble. You know, when I was growing up here trying to figure out my life, my business, my income, my finances, all this stuff, I had teachers like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley and Les Brown and Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins and all these cool people. But if you look around today, one of the biggest challenges that we face is those people are gone. There has not been a new generation of personal development teachers who have come out and said, hey, look, here's how to manage your life. Here's how to think about things. Here's how to have a better philosophy. Here's how to treat people. Here's how to treat yourself. And most people don't even talk about goals anymore. They just talk about what the next thing that's burning down in the world is. Between war and famine and challenges and politics and politicians and all these scumbags, most people don't have a plan for their life anymore. So for today, what I wanted to do is something a little bit unique and a little bit different, would just give you a different way of goal setting that probably you've never heard of before. And I want to give you something that's actually going to be beneficial to your life so you can actually go decide that, hey, look, I want something for my life. I can plan for it and I'm going to go get it, regardless of what's going on out there. So one of the best ways that I've ever looked at goal setting is not the old way from the 60s, 70s, 80s, where they sat down and they said, look, you really just got to write down all 8,000 things that you want in your life and you should rank them from 1 to 10 and you should put them out in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. I think that's such a crazy way to look at goal setting. The best way I've ever done this has been what's called the wheel of life. But before we get started, let me just say something. Clarity is power. The more clear you are about what you want, what you're after, where you're going in your life, the easier it is to get it. It's very difficult to know what decisions to make in life if you don't know where you're headed, where you're going, your ultimate destination or destiny. And I'm not saying that you have to have everything figured out here today, but one thing that we do have to figure out is like, where am I going next? And not for the rest of your life, not for the next 10 years, but just for the next couple of years, where are you headed? What do you want to do in your career? What do you want to do in your life? What do you want to do in your relationships, in your health, and your fitness, and all of these things that are important to you? And one thing that I've learned here, Jim Rohn said this way back in the day, he said most people major in minor things, meaning they're so obsessed over celebrity gossip. They're so obsessed over movies and drama and politics and all the crap that's out there in the world today. And most people don't live the life they want because they just focus on these big things. Instead of focusing on the things that matter, they focus on things that don't matter and they make them huge, they make them big. And the one thing that you got to realize is that if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else does. And there's politicians who can't wait to make you a slave. There are government corporate entities that can't wait to take advantage of your data and your identity and everything like this. And I'm not saying this to doom and gloom you, but I'm saying if you don't have a plan, someone else does already for you. And the one thing that we got to do is break out of that. You know, you hear this silly stuff about the matrix, breaking out of the matrix or whatever, but there's some truth to it because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who have plans for your life to make sure that you work at this job and you do this thing and this is all you're ever going to be and this is all you're ever going to deserve. And we're sitting there hoping for scraps. And in reality, we can just take control. We can make something different if we wanted to. So that's why you got to have a plan for your own life. And I'm not saying this to talk down to you here today. I'm saying this because I'm pissed off that other people have taken advantage of you in your life so far and they didn't have your best interests in mind. Now, who am I? Just some random stranger. Look, I've been around a little bit now and I've now made it to my 40s and it's so funny to look back in my life and say, where have I been? But, you know, for almost a decade, I was the head speaker and trainer for Tony Robbins. And I got the chance to work with hundreds of thousands of people and I worked with over 5,000 different businesses. And besides that, I had a martial arts school that was pretty large and we did pretty well. But the one thing that I had to ask over and over and over again is what are people really after? What do you really want in your life? A lot of people say, I want money, I want freedom, I want this, I want that. But the truth is you want how those things, or at least how you think they're going to make you feel. A lot of people want the money, but they don't realize what they're after is a sense of freedom, a sense of security, a sense of certainty, a feeling of like I'm safe and secure and everything is taken care of, that sense of relief or peace, if you will. However you want to define it, the one thing that we're always after is an emotion. What is the emotion that you're really trying to seek out when you're looking for these big goals, whether it's the money or the car, or the date or whatever it is? And if you can be honest with yourself for a second, really start to realize like, why am I really trying to build this business? Why am I really trying to be an entrepreneur? What am I really after? And for me, it's this number one emotion of freedom, to be able to do what I want, when I want, with whomever I want, as much as I want. And I want to be happy in that sense because for me, freedom has always equaled happiness. And I don't know if that's the same for you, but For a lot of people, they want to stay stuck. They want to wake up, go to work, get their paycheck, go home, pay their bills, pay their taxes, have a couple of dollars left over, and then go to bed and do it all over again. That life was never for me. And I'm guessing if you're watching this silly video, it's not for you either. So what are we really after? Well, we're after those emotions. They want to make how you think it's going to make you feel at the end of the day. More money will make me feel more free, more secure, more safe, more whatever. A better car would make me feel cooler. And look, there's no judgment here. If you want a cool car to feel cool, like, be my guest. Like, you're free to do whatever the hell you want. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, do anything you want. That's what I'm after. But the thing is, we got to realize the quality of our life is the quality of questions that we ask. And most people don't feel good all day, every day because they ask really negative questions all day, every day. They ask questions like, what's wrong with me? Well, your brain is this sarcastic a-hole. It's never going to give you a positive answer to what's wrong with me. Why does this always happen to me? How could they do this to me? There's never going to be a good answer, a good response to that. So we need to start out by asking better quality questions. Questions like, what am I really after in this situation? What do I really want out of life? What do I really want in my relationships? What do I really want in my health? You know, for a long time, a lot of people are like, I want a six pack. And other people are just like, man, I wish I could just get out of bed in the morning, right? It really depends on what question you're asking, because that question will determine the next answer or the next destination or direction that we're after. And so we want to ask better quality questions. A lot of people ask this question like, what should I do with my life? What should I do with my career? When in reality, you should be asking, what do I want? Because a lot of people are saying, hey, what do I do next? And when people come to me for advice on business or marketing, and that's my specialty, right? I'm pretty good at marketing and strategy and business and stuff like that. It's been one of my favorite things to study and learn. So when I'm giving advice, when people are like, hey, what do I do? I'm like, hang on. The first question shouldn't be, what do I do next? The question is, what do you want? Oh, I want to increase my sales. I want to make more money. I want to do this. Okay, that's better, but how about we do it this way? Oh, no, I don't want to do it that way. Okay, great. So let's be more clear. Again, clarity is power. To really understand what you're after, you got to ask the questions like, what is really my outcome here? What am I really after? And here's a good example. Have you ever gotten in an argument with like a friend? And it was one of those situations, maybe it was a family member, where you just sat down and you started talking, and just for whatever reason, the conversation didn't go right. And all of a sudden you start bickering about something stupid. And then about halfway through the conversation, you're like, what are we even arguing about? Have you ever experienced that? And most people do too, because they're never really clear about what's my outcome here. Was my outcome to argue? Was my outcome to bicker with somebody? Was that really what I wanted out of this interaction today? No, of course not. But because you don't decide what your outcome is, you never tend to get it, or you just leave it up to the whims of somebody else, which again, if we want to take control of our life, of our business, of our income, of all these things, we need to determine what is our real outcome. So in the traditional goal setting sense, the biggest challenge was people were like, hey, let's write down everything you want in life, and cars and houses and helicopters and jets and all of these things, and let's just rank them. But I've never found that to be incredibly valuable. The best way to gain clarity in life is this thing called the wheel of life. And I'll tell you, just here's the secret behind the scenes. There are a bunch of old sleazy salespeople who use the wheel of life to tell you how shitty your life was going, and that's why you needed to buy their thing. But the wheel of life itself is extremely valuable. And what it is you break down your life into categories, and then you rank yourself, not based on anybody else's measure, but on your own measure, on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is like, this is perfect, this can't be any better, oh my God, this is amazing, to like 0 or 1, where it's like, oh man, I could really use some help here. And if you were to look at this on the screen here and you see these categories, and I'm not suggesting that these are the only categories in your life, there could be a bunch of them. And I'll give you an exercise here in a second if you work with me here. And I'll show you, for a lot of people, physical body is important. What do you want out of your body? What do you want out of the emotions and meaning? And where would you put yourself on these? Like scale of 1 to 10 for emotions and meaning. Meaning, are you constantly stressed and frustrated and pissed off and angry? Or are you constantly happy and excited and motivated and passionate, whatever it is, right? Same thing in your relationships. And that could be personal or family or intimate relationships, whatever that is. Where would you put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? And time. Are you always being run ragged? Are you always out of time? Or do you feel like you're in pretty good control? And then what about your career? Or some people call it a mission. Or what about your finances or your contribution or spirituality? Whatever is important to you. And again, these areas are just kind of like a basic cookie cutter version of this wheel of life. But for you, I want you to decide what areas of your life are really important to you today in this season of life. And I'll talk about that more in a second. But if you were to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put yourself in each of these? And if you got to pause the video, be my guest, do that. But for a lot of people, they do something like this, right? Or their physical body is like a 5 and their emotions, like they're constantly stressed out and depressed or whatever. So they're at like a 1, and their relationships down here, they're at like, pretty good or whatever. But imagine if this wasn't a wheel of life, this is a wheel on your car. Like, how smooth would that ride be going? And a lot of people think they can just go faster in life, but they end up going ka-dunk, 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 and it's really challenging and it's really painful. They think that without evening things out, without finding some sort of balance in their life, they think that they can just go faster and work harder and everything would be all right. But that's just not the way how life works. Now, I'm not suggesting here today that, my relationships are a 10 out of 10 and I'm so happy there, but my physical body isn't there, so I need to ruin my relationships to even this. No, that's not the point. The point is to expand in each one of these areas and get a slightly better every single day. So we don't want to just go faster without the clarity, without the balance. We want to try to figure out, one question here is, what does a level 10 look like in these areas today? So if I were to just ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at in your physical body? And you were to respond, hey, I'm about a 5. Okay, cool. What would a level 10 look like? And for a lot of people, it's like, man, if I had a 6-pack and I could like jump 10 feet in the air and I can do that. No, like, what would a level 10 look like today? And this is a challenge because you really got to sit with this question for a second, because a lot of people say, man, if I just woke up and I wasn't so damn tired all the time, that would feel like a level 10. I would feel like I won. And by the way, what do you realize when you hit a level 10 in any area of your life, when you feel like you've maxed out, what do you realize? There's a level 11, there's a 12, there's a 13. Like, it keeps going, doesn't it? So for all of us, we got to realize that life is a never-ending progression. We got to keep going. There is no such thing as perfect. You hit level 10, you realize there's a level 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever it is, and you almost start over, don't you? Where it's like, man, I hit level 10, but my level 10 as yesterday is not the same as my level 10 as today. So the question that I have for you first, again, is what is a level 10 in each of these areas? And before you do that, I just want you to kind of think about this for a second, because I'm giving you a few areas, but realistically, the first step in this process is to figure out what areas are important to you in this season of life. There were some seasons of my life where relationships just weren't the most important thing, and so they didn't go on my wheel. And I know that might sound silly. I'm not here to judge you. Hopefully you don't sit and judge me. Be my guest, I guess. But, finances at some point in my life wasn't important. In other areas of my life, it was important, right? Same thing for my career, my mission, and I felt like it was so good and it was just so natural. And then there was other times where I was unhappy with the work I was doing. I was unhappy with my clients and my customers, and I just didn't like what I was doing. So it changed. So first question is, what would a level 10 look like in these areas of your life? But more importantly is, what are some of the reasonable numbers that you can give yourself compared to today? So like, if you were to say, look, finances, for me, a level 10 would be, man, if I made $1 million a year, but you're making $100,000 a year, well, logically speaking, you're at about a 1 out of 10. And the point is not to feel bad about yourself. The point is not to look at this and say, oh my God, I'm a 1 out of 10. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is now you have steps to get to a level 10. And most people think that they're going to go from a 0 to a 10 overnight. That's just not how the world works. Our job here to start to even this out and start to have a more balanced life and start to progress and everything else is to go from a 1 to a 2, from a 2 to a 3, from a 3 to a 4. That's our next goal, our next step, our direction, our next destination. So if I'm making $100,000 a year and my level 10 was like, oh my God, if I made $1 million a year, I would be so happy. Like, that would just be incredible. Can you imagine what that would be like? We'd never be stressed again, and I can afford all the bills, and I can go on vacation. I can take my family out. I can do all these things. Like, imagine how cool that would be. And if you're at $100,000 a year right now, well, your next logical step is $200,000 a year. And for most people, they say, man, that's not so far out of reach. Man, I could get a little bit better job. I can start a small business. I can make things happen. I can sell some more stuff. And I really think I can go for 100,000 to 200,000. Because here's the thing that people forget. Progress equals happiness. Have you ever been sad, depressed, frustrated, pissed off, angry at the world? When you look at your own business or what you're trying to do with your life and you're just like, man, this sucks. I hate this. I can guarantee you that every single time that you felt depressed or sad or pissed off or frustrated, it felt like you weren't progressing, you weren't growing. So we as human beings, we got to grow, right? You either grow or you die. You climb or you slide. You're either aging like a fine wine right now or a stinky cheese. So for all of us here, we got to make sure that we're constantly growing and progressing. And one thing that this wheel of life does for you is it allows you to track your progress over time. Because most people feel like such a failure in their goals because it's like 0 or 1. It's a binary thing. I either make $1 million or I don't. God, I remember this guy I worked with years and years ago. And I was like, hey, how many people are successful in this room? And I was in a room full of like really successful people, right? And this guy was like the only one who didn't raise his hand. I was like, dude, what do you mean you're not successful? You make a fortune. The guy was making like $30 million a year. And he was like, well, no, you don't understand. For me to be level 10, I need to make $40 million a year. I'm like, dude, you make $30 million a year and you're upset that you're not making 40? Like, what the hell are you talking about? But for him, he had all these rules and expectations. It was either pass or fail. He either made 40 million or he didn't. And for him, that was like life. That was everything that was important to him. And I was like, well, look, let's look at other areas of life that might support this. And so even if you're not there yet, you can still feel happy, excited, motivated, driven, passionate, whatever it is. So when we look at this, the questions that I have for you is number one is like, what does a level 10 look like in an area that's important to you today? And then number two is, what's a reasonable number to give yourself today? So again, like if you're level 10 and you're like, I want to make $1 million and you're at 100,000, you're at a 1. If you're making 200,000, you're at a 2. And then again, this is not to be woe is me. Oh my God, I'm not where I want to be in my life. Well, of course. But the best part of it is the pursuit, the growth, the challenges. Again, progress equals happiness. So now the next thing that we want to figure out is what will get you to the next level. Again, not to go from a 1 to a 10 overnight, but what are the next steps for you to go from here to there? Like if you're in your fitness or whatever, in your relationships, as an example, like, hey man, if I was level 10 in my relationships, we would just be a little bit kinder to each other. We would go on date night a couple nights a week. We would do this, we would do that, whatever it is. And you say, man, we're going on date night like once every other week. You know what? For me to go from a 3 to a 4, we got to go to date night every week. This is the new rule in the house. We go date night every single week, and that would bring me from a 3 to a 4. And in that moment, you feel the progression, you feel the happiness, you feel the excitement. Why? Because you're growing, you're expanding, you're improving your relationships. And whatever that looks like to you, maybe it's not an intimate relationship, maybe it's a relationship with your kids, maybe it's a relationship with your parents, maybe it's a relationship with your friends. There's no place to judge here. At the end of the day, it's just like, what's going to get you to the next level? So if we're reviewing here briefly, one thing I'd like you to do, if you want to sit down, is write down this little circle. First step, what are the important areas for you in your life in the season of today, right? You don't have to share this with me. You don't have to share it with anybody else. But at the end of the day, you just want to write down what are the 5 or 6 or 7 areas. Quick note, you probably don't want to write down too many, right? You don't want to have like 20 areas of your life. Which ones can you kind of combine? And on the other side, you probably don't want too few, right? I've known a couple people who are like, I have 2 things that are important to me, my body and my money. Like, okay, there's a little bit more to life than just having a 6-pack and some cash, right? What are some other areas that are important to you? And again, it's just what's important in this season of life. For a lot of seasons of my life, like contribution was not really important to me. I was too busy trying to figure out my own life before I can contribute. And that's a good, reasonable attitude to take. Like if you're 20 years old or you're 30 years old and you don't have your own finances together, man, you're broke, you're trying to make things happen. Like it's really difficult for you to contribute to someone else. What's the old saying? You got to put your oxygen mask on before you try to help anybody else, right? So take care of yourself before you worry about your contribution. So again, step 1, what are the areas of your life that are important to you here today? Write them down on a piece of paper. Number 2, what does a level 10 look like to you in that area today? Not 10 years from now, not 5 years from now, but like what's a level 10? Like if I had a 6-pack, everything would be perfect. Well, okay, but you're 100 pounds overweight right now. So how about we move it from like 100 pounds overweight to 80 pounds, right? How do you lose 10, 15, 20 pounds? Man, if I lost 20 pounds, dude, that would be incredible. I would be a level 10. And again, you don't stop there. That's not the end all be all, but where's a level 10 for you today? And then the next thing is like, okay, where would you give yourself? Reasonable number. And you got to detach yourself from the outcome a little bit here. Again, I'll repeat myself for the 3rd time. This is not to feel bad about yourself. It's not a reason to have a pity party. It's just to look at, okay, where am I at today? And then next, what's going to get me to level 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, whatever it is. What's the next step for you? And what are some immediate actions that you can take in order to achieve this goal? Because now you have a list of action plans, not just goals that are some dreamy, lofty thing that go up on the wall that you have like a piece of paper, like, here are my 10-year goals. Screw all that. What are the 3 or 4 things that I need to do today that's going to improve these numbers? That's what I'm really after. And if you're a business owner, I got to tell you, man, This is one of the biggest things that you got to focus on here, because what are the next 2 or 3 action steps that I need to take to improve the business today? What are the next 2 or 3 action steps I need to take to improve my health, my fitness today, my relationships, my contribution, whatever, again, is important to you here in life. Now, with all that being said, I know this is kind of a weird out of the blue video for you here today, but I wanted to give you this because I had a bunch of questions from just young men and women who were like, man, I can't wait to talk to Andrew Tate. Like, that guy. You gotta realize that there were people that came before us that had some of this stuff figured out. You were never gonna find Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and Dennis Waitley and Les Brown and Brian Tracy, like all these people. You were never gonna find these people who cared about other human beings ever caught in some goofy scandal. You weren't gonna see them in politics. You weren't gonna see them all this. They were just out there to help the world. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of that here today. So I wanted to record this video, and hopefully this finds you in a place where you can sit down and say, all right, look, what do I really want out of my life and how do I get it? So hopefully this is helpful for you. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you thought. If this is too much, I never want this to come across as preachy, but I want to make sure that we have the resources available to us to actually sit down and set our goals and to go achieve something, so we don't just worry about what else is going on in the world. So until I see you next, live strong, live with passion, and I'll see you at the top.